little hesitant to talk about this because I don't see it covered very often. And to be fully transparent, I'm still processing this for myself. So I should call this, I should create a series called Real Talk from a dating and relationship expert. But it's this whole thing around how we feel or not feel about ourselves and how that actually affects us in every area of our life. I mean, primarily you're coming here because you want advice about your dating life, about your relationships, about how to be loved for who you are. And so I'll stick to it because that's why you're here and I want to respect your time. But the topic is about this idea of worth and self-worth. And it's something I've wrestled with answering for most of my life. And in fact, when I went to research it, and it's like, what is really self-worth? Like, people talk about self-value, people talk about confidence, all of these other things. But I think that those are very separate. I think that you can be a very confident person on the outside, but not feel very worthy on the inside. You know, I've been coaching people for 14 years, and I can tell you that most of the time that the way someone looks on the outside and how you perceive them is not how they even perceive themselves. I was just talking to a girlfriend of mine the other day, and she was saying, you know, you look so elegant in all of your pictures, which I think is another reason why I'm doing this with not much makeup and no hair, any of that, just to make it very real. And she said, you just always look so elegant, you look so luxurious in all of your pictures. And I said, yeah, but it's so funny, like the way that people see me when I walk down the street or wherever I may be, like I don't always feel that on the inside. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, I still feel like that little girl who was a bit of a tomboy who, you know, I never saw myself as like the teacher's pet or the pretty girl. I was just never that girl. I was probably causing trouble or getting into trouble and just trying to be nice to stay out of trouble, but enjoyed causing trouble probably to some degree, and just being wild. The little wild child is where I felt the most free. So, and I said, it's just crazy because I sometimes wish I could match what other people see. Like I wish I felt luxurious and elegant all the time on the inside, but frankly, I don't always feel that way. And so that led me on a journey of going like, what is really self-worth? And it's been an ongoing, I want to say battle, because that's how it feels, but an ongoing journey to really get clarity around what that is and what does that even mean. And I found one video on YouTube that really did a good job explaining it to some degree, but I felt like obviously it could have gone into more depth, and it was a TED Talk. And I felt like the woman did a really good job. But other than that, it's actually I found it quite challenging to find really good articles that talk about self-worth. And so one of the things that they say about like self-worth is being able to accept yourself. And I have to say that this is a secret confession of being a dating relationship expert for 14 years. When I've worked with people, the one thing that I see from everyone is this: Arica, just tell me what to do. Tell me who I need to be to make people like me, to make women like me, to make men like me, to make my wife like me again, to make my husband desire me again. Like, just tell me what I need to do so I can be that person. What I hear underneath that, because I think a good coach is always going to hear not what just your client is saying, but what's going on below the surface, because that's the real answer is, how do I make myself worthy of being loved? Like, what is it that I need to do? Just tell me what to do. And some people can't go there. Some people, you know, I get guys all the time that say, you know, teach me about sex, like so I can have women to have sex with me. But what does that do for the guy who has sex? He feels validated. He feels what? worthy in that moment. Or a woman, when she has a boyfriend, it's like somehow in society we've been so ingrained with like, if you have a man, if you're married, like you're a worthy woman. And because I've been coaching for 14 years, I know that a lot of people, not most, I shouldn't say that, a lot of people who post pictures about their relationships, like that's not what's going on behind the scenes. Like they're really pissed at each other. They're not having sex. They're having a breakdown in communication. One's not feeling desired by the other. And so it's like, essentially, what we're all saying is we think we want all these things. A woman thinks she wants to like have that relationship so she feels like I'm going somewhere with my life. There's one part of my life that I'm in control with. Or a guy can say, you know, I just want to have more sex so that I can feel validated in who I am. But I believe that at the core of what we're trying to say is just help me feel worthy of love. And so I've gone on this journey, and why I say I feel like it's been a little bit of a battle, and I felt like I got some clarity as to why it's a battle. Because I kept fighting with like what I've been ingrained with, what makes me valuable, what makes me worthy. And I think I started on this and I didn't finish, was the fact that, you know, one of the journeys of self-worth is being able to accept yourself. And that is all of it. Like your flaws, your baggage, your crazy thoughts, like your great things that make you fantastic, like all of it. Like we don't get to like comb through and say, well, I accept this about me, but I don't accept that of me. And so it was in working with my therapist. I work with a somatic therapist. And there were some things that I really thought I had tackled and handled. And I do believe that healing is a layering effect. I hate when people say that, but in my experience, that's what it's been. And it's what I see happening. I don't think we can all heal at once. I haven't seen that happen. And I think if someone tried to do that, they'd be dead or in a mental institution, because the nervous system can only process so much. So it's this journey of like accepting yourself. And so I had learned that there were many things that I accept about myself, but then there were those certain areas where it was like, if I didn't do well in that, for me, it was like the end of the world. It was just like, I just couldn't accept myself if I didn't perform well in a certain area of my life. And what I see that has to shift inside of all of us, if we're really gonna feel worthy, you know, we talk a lot about like authentic dating, authentic relating, being authentic in your relationships. And people say like, I just want to feel authentic, but you can't feel authentic about yourself unless you're able to accept yourself. And so in that journey of self-acceptance, it was like, okay, what is the battle? What is it that makes me feel still like there are areas where I don't feel as worthy? And the battle was that I believe that every single one of us has to have a boundary. I talk a lot about boundaries because I believe that without boundaries, there's no relationship. You can't have a relationship. You can't have healthy love without boundaries. You can't have healthy attraction. Like whatever it is that you want in the context of attraction, relationship, the opposite sex, being loved, like you have to have a boundary. You have to have a boundary for yourself first and foremost. But what I realized was that there are things that society says, like, this is what makes you successful. And under success, there's that other word of, if you are successful, then you are finally worthy and accepted. And what's the underlying of that? If you're not successful, then you're not as accepted, right? And we all have our different thresholds of where that hits us. For some of us, it's money. For some of us, it's relationships. For some of us, it's our health, our body, our image, like how we look in this world. For some, it may be all three, or maybe all of them. But somewhere there's an edge for you where you're like, yeah, if I'm not doing there, I feel worthless. I feel like a piece of shit. So that's where my battle was just like, I'm looking at these things, and if there's that one thing, like I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and it's from the Diary of a CEO. I really love this podcast, and shout out to that guy. I don't even know his name. And he interviewed a woman that I've been following for a long time named Marie Forleo. And she was, she was sharing. I was like, I have to redefine like how I define what makes me worthy, not what everyone else says, but I have to go with my own standards, and I have to have that boundary to redefine that. Because if we don't have boundaries with society, then guess what? We will drive ourselves crazy. We will give ourselves anxiety and depression trying to keep up with the new bar that society says, like, this is what makes you valuable. This is what makes you worthy. Like years ago, and this is why, we have to have boundaries, because it's always changing what society says. Like, 20 years ago, we didn't have social media dictating, like, listen, the amount of friends, followers, likes, and views you get, like, that determines like what makes you great. I remember it got back to me. Oh, I know where I was going with the Marie Forleo thing. It ties into this. So someone had came back and told me that there were a group of people, and they go, and they were talking about me. They said, oh, she's nothing, because they didn't say she's nothing, but they're like, who is she? Like, she doesn't even have a big social media following. And I was like, they said that, really? Like, that was where their value system was around a social media following. And so I was like, holy cow, like that's crazy. But that's where we get a lot of value from. And so what she was saying in this interview, which brings me back to the Diary of a CEO, that people would tell her, like, wow, you're so good at what you do. You should be way more successful than you are. And I have heard that my entire career, and it hurts, or it has hurt so much hearing that when people mean that as a compliment, I'm just like, oh, just shut up, because if I knew how to do more, I would. And so even in that, we can attach self-worth. So finally, I was just like, I'm going to define what self-worth is for myself. I have to have that boundary with society. I cannot allow society or anybody, my family, my loved ones, I can't let anyone decide for me what makes me valuable. That has to be a me decision. That has to be a me boundary. Because without that, then I allow everybody else to dictate my value. I allow everyone else to dictate my life, which then affects my mental health, how I see the world, and how I see myself. And I cannot allow that to happen. So I have to define it for myself. So this morning I said, you know what? I'm gonna redefine that for me. So I'm just gonna take my list and I'll read it to you, and you can tell me if it relates to you at all. So I wrote, how do I see self-value for myself? Right here in the kitchen listening to me as I do this YouTube video. It's kind of a private moment.
I think he's hungry.
Okay, I'm not gonna edit that out. So my ability to be held by God, like I have this cuddling thing that I do with God. You can ask me more about it and maybe I'll tell you, but it's something. And my boldness and my high risk taking capacity. I have a capacity to take a lot of risk. And my openness. I have a very open heart to God and to people. And I think that's one of the things that makes me very beautiful, and it makes me very attractive to people, is that I have a very open spirit about me. And the other thing is my heart of compassion. And these are the things that I'm like, you know what? This is what makes me valuable. These are the things that I treasure about myself. And this is how I want to value myself as worthy. These are the things that make me worthy, that establish my own self-worth. So this is a very different video than I've done. I think I've done one other video like this years ago in Bali. But if this resonates with you, let me know in the comments section, like what part really spoke to you. And if you're new here, make sure that you subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because apparently YouTube's not really telling people about videos anymore. I don't know what's going on. I asked them and they said that they are, but my viewers say otherwise. And look, if boundaries, if you are tired of allowing other people to call the shots in your life and you want to get in the driver's seat of that, then please check out my boundaries program. It will change how you show up in life. It will change how how they treat you, but most importantly, like what kind of respect and love you deserve by having better boundaries for yourself. So I hope this spoke to someone. If it did, it would really mean a lot to me if you shared it with me in the comments, or if someone needs to watch this, share it with them. And if you guys like this, I will make more videos in the future. But this is just raw processing and coming up with different solutions than the ones that we're all hearing that obviously don't work. So I love you, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.